we can also bring those things down. I know it is not easy. We have been going to court with the ACC, this and that. When this lawyer today, when you hire those senior advocates, it comes with a cost. It comes with a cost, but it has been coming down. We pray that all these things will be ended, and the company will free from those things. Mr. Chairman, I also want to say here that rent is also gone up here, rent and travel entertainment. We can also prune these things down. We thank God that COVID has come today, nobody's traveling. So meeting now is virtual meetings. You communicate in your home. Today you don't come to the office because even the Third Mainland Bridge has also compounded some problem today, maintenance. So some of the things you can run from the homes and do those business and get the result. So COVID is one way, another blessing, another way is a thing we cannot wash away. So those things have, there's a cost reduction in this COVID. So I love the things, but because of his injury in the woman, that we say this in rather we go. But there's other things, there's something to learn from it. Mr. Chairman, this is time for things to look inward and do things.
Thank you.
And I'm saying that clearly, with the way things are going, by next year, we shall return by grace of God. Strongly, if it's not dividend, at least we are not posting any loss or whatever. I know we can do it. So God will bless all of us. I don't want to bore this man that leaving us. This is kind of a sent forth AGM for him. So we don't want to bore him with a lot of questions so that whoever is footing into that shoe will not say, why these shareholders are so, that kind of things. The man will also know that, yes, we respect him, we're also going to respect him by his conduct, by what manner he's showing for shareholder, who receive such accolade we are giving to him today. Mr. Chairman, I rest my case, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Okay, there are three hands, and what I'll do it in the order from the back, Madam, and then I'll end with you, Sir Soni. Oh, please.
The chairman, other members of the board, very distinguished fellow shareholders, in particular the over 26,000 other shareholders who are not privileged to be here like we are. I want to start on the note of the incoming CEO, Nnamdi.
For the benefit of our shareholders who are listening on the live stream, may I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Okay. For the records, my name's Nona Awo, and I will also be starting with Nnamdi. If we were to charge for the size of spaces taken up by directors, I'm sure Nnamdi's profile, even the longest I've seen in recent times, will have contributed enough that will have helped to decrease the loss that we posted in the year under review. So I'll be hoping that next time, once we find a situation like this, let's begin to find other sources of income that will help to reduce the loss. So Nnamdi, you are owing us. We'll send you a debit note. Haven't taken this side of. But speaking seriously to the account and taking it from the page 11, which has the chairman's statement, I was worried when I read, and then all that you mentioned as it relates to the operation of the company has to do with the issue of interest. But if you look further, you are going to find that our problem was much more than the interest. Extending page 11 to 44, 76, 81, 90, 98. One of the things that you will find, especially on page 98, is the fact that 56% of our value added was basically expended on interest payment. One would be expecting that given the size of top line vis-a-vis the size of interest that we paid, that further explanation will have been given. So I'll be hoping that that itself was something that you will talk about, because if you look at the interest element, yes, it went up by almost 820 million. But the borrowing, yes, I know they are closing figures. The borrowing did go down. As we see, it will be important that that itself will be explained. Yes, I also did find that other income, we also posted a loss in that regard. I wasn't expecting that we'll make additional income from investment, but our conventional other source of income, as indicated on page 43, also declined. So what is it that we didn't do right that resulted in the top line going down and the bottom line also taking a negative position? Having said that, I am of the opinion that on page 25, with unclaimed dividends already at 243 million, that will begin to look at what we can do differently. And I say this because whether we want it or not, Eterna is a relatively young company compared to the grandfathers in the market. So what is it that we'll be doing differently to be able to take that figure down? And I say this because we also have a situation where, in terms of size of shareholding, 26,000. So it's nothing too large for us to be able to manage well. Whatever the company will be doing, I'll be hoping that going forward, the older dividend will be displayed on our website, and that the registrar will also do same, so as a way of getting people to take up the outstanding dividends. I will also be interested as to what we'll be doing in filling the 2 slots, but beyond it, because if you look at the recent KAMA, first, the 2 persons who are leaving are from the same stable, if they were to play polo, okay? So we will not be asking, oh, when are they bringing? But it's also important that, in line with the new KAMA, that we take another look at the structure of our board. Other than the big boys, 5% plus, the minorities are not represented on this board. But like I said, the new KAMA is even going to make it a little more complex, since we are expected to have 3 independent directors. So if the big boys are interested in filling their slots, it's also important that the minority must be represented. Yes, I know that the minority themselves are not that organized, but that will not demand that their rights should also be trampled upon. I must also, in this account on page 88 in particular, recognize the efforts to reduce the receivables, going down to less than 20 billion now, as well as the inventory. But I am not certain as to what the challenge is with in terms of lubricants. Because if you look at page 77, lubricants posted a loss, and I wouldn't know why. Retail posted a loss. Lubricant in particular, I can't understand why lubricant as a segment of our operation should post a loss. So I'll be hoping that some answers will be given around that. But for me, the future of any organization is far more important than the past. And in looking at the future, hence I asked for board representation. But I am not certain that the joint or Juhi 2, has anything been said about the completion date? And I know that has been on for a while. If not for anything, I'm sure if it's also well run, it will also bring a little more profit. So what is the state of that project? I ask all of this because looking at the half year 2020, we've already registered a loss of 67 million. All things being equal, I'm hoping that we'll be able to scrape this off by the end of full year. But even if we do, and we are not in a position to pay dividends, I'll be hoping that come next year, since there is room between the authorized and paid up, as we currently refer to, you must come in here with a 2-for-9 bonus as compensation. I didn't say should, must. Don't. And I say this with all due respect, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I know that one of the things that you are likely to give answer to in responding, yes, we didn't pay dividend, that you are also affected. We are not affected in the same size. Because looking at this account, as chairman, you earn 17 million. Okay, so if you had to put 17 million, even in 5 kobo dividends, you know how many units that will have meant. Okay, but that is not the case with the other shareholders. So while we don't grudge what you earn as directors, which incidentally, I don't know why that was the case, company secretary. It wasn't stated on the proxy form here as to what you expect us to approve for director's fee. And I know that people signed without probably understanding the implication of what they are signing. If you look at the proxy page, nothing as to the amount. But going forward, I also think that that proxy page needed to be a little more readable. And I don't think that itself will have caused us anything more than it caused us in producing this. So on a final note, while wishing the outgoing successful endeavor in his new business, we are hoping that Nnamdi will take the baton and cover the lost ground. Because when you run a company anywhere in the world, you have a relay race, an unending relay race. He probably has run lane 2, okay? Rather, second leg. You are taking the baton for the third leg. But it's important that the areas that you didn't cover, that you must also bring that on table, and that's hopefully we'll find in the size of the top line, and by extension, the bottom line. Once again, I want to thank the company for making this opportunity possible, and like I said, representing over 26,000 other shareholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nona, and appreciate the points that you have made, and you'll get some response, I'm sure, along the way. May I ask Madam to make her contribution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mrs. Bisi Bakari. All protocol duly observed. Much has been said by the earlier speakers, and in addition to that, I've sent my comments and questions through the company secretary to you yesterday, and I can see that some of the comments and questions have been asked by the earlier speaker also. So, and I believe that company secretary will have passed that to you. In order not to waste your time, I will go straight to page 25, where we have the unclaimed dividend. Of course, Mr. Nonawo have talked about that also. But my concern concerning this unclaimed dividend is the amount involved. Within 5 years, within 4 years, we are having 243.1 million unclaimed dividend. This is worrisome, Mr. Chairman. and I want the regulators to do something about this. And again, I want to call on the registrar also that the e-mandate given to shareholders to fill is like some registrars are really giving shareholders problem concerning this e-mandate. It might not be our own registrar here, but all other registrars, I'm talking to all the registrars involved in this country. Because by the time we fill e-mandate for company A, maybe we are having 10 shares without registrars. Because in the e-mandate form, there is a column of companies whereby they are registered to. But unfortunately, when you fill that form for registrars, they will only do the one you sign for them. They won't do other companies that you tick for them. That is not good enough. And they expect you to come back to come and fill other companies. For instance, a shareholder that traveled down from Kaduna or Kano or from East to Lagos to come and do this e-mandate. And after going back, you expect such shareholders to come back to Lagos to start filling other companies. This is not good. And I want SEC to look at this also. I don't know if SEC is really monitoring some of these registrars concerning this. I think they should do something about that, because it gives me concern when you see Sanwo-Osu name in the unclaimed dividend list. When you see my name that I attend all AGMs, even the current governor of Lagos State, we attended AGM about 3 weeks ago, Sanwo-Olu name is there as unclaimed dividend. So that shows the level of concern concerning this unclaimed dividend. And I want SEC to really monitor the registrars, all the registrars, in order to reduce this. Having said that, I want to use this opportunity also to really commend our company on our succession plan. The former MD, the outgoing MD, Mr. Mohamed Tuko, is going, and we are not going outside to recruit for another MD. We are bringing someone from in-house. This is very good and is highly commendable. I really commend our company for this. On that, and again, I believe that Mr. Nnamdi Obiagu, wealth of experience in the oil and gas industry of 2 decades, will be an advantage to him in this is a new assignment, and I wish him a successful tenure. Having said that, I also wish Mr. Mohamed Tuko, the former CEO, success in his future endeavor also. Like I said earlier, I've already sent my questions concerning the financial highlights, our vision, cost of sales, review of our finance costs, total comprehensive loss for the year, trade and other receivables. Again, on the trade and other receivables, Mr. Chairman, there is reduction compared to previous year from 30.86 billion to 9.45 billion. This is very good and is highly commendable also. But I expect this to have positive impact in our cash and bank balances, but it is not so. I don't know why it is like that. Again, I want the board to look into the effects of COVID-19 in oil and gas sector generally, and the outlook for 2020 and our business continuity post-COVID. Thank you once again for the opportunity given to me.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bakari. Sir. That unclaimed dividend, I think we need to discuss it after.
Mr. Chairman of the Board of Eterna Plc, distinguished directors of the board, and very distinguished shareholders, those who are here, and those who are representing. I will not breach the protocol without mentioning all the parties here, which is very important. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Okezie has said certain things about the outgoing CEO, but I just want to summarize my understanding and my belief about Mahmood. Mahmood is a well-brought-up boy, because his father also called him my son. He's a well-brought-up boy, because this issue about behavior starts from home. It cannot start from outside. If you are not properly brought up at home, you continue to misbehave and undermine people. But however, in summary, Mahmood is what we call humility par excellence. And that's the way I want to summarize all that Mrs. Bakare and Boniface Okezie has said. I want to go a little bit memory lane. In 5 years, which this annual report captures, if you go to page 99 and 100, 99 and 100, you will see his contributions to the development of this company in the last 5 years, which is captured here. In the 10 years, he has stayed at the top of the whole thing. If you look at, let's take earning per share, you will see the graduation. If you take turnover, you will see the graduation, and if you take profit before tax, you will also see the graduation, which of course gave promises to those who invested in this company that the trend will continue. What I saw in this annual report is that we have one money which came in last year, 1.8 or 1.18 billion naira, which did not come in this year. It affected everything. I also saw in this account that there is prospecting expenses that went into this account. It was an ambition that would have helped the company to move up. If we take it from the angle of government agency like NMPC, they prospect with billions of naira. At the end of the day, when they fail to discover the black gold, nobody will die. We move on with life. Now, it's a lesson for my namesake. I'm sure Mahmood itself in Igbo language is Nnamdi. So, my namesake, Nnamdi, who is coming up, he's carrying a clear liability of about 200 million naira. When you add the last year and add the half year, and his duty is to ensure that he works hard, recover the billions that is still on receivables. And when those things are done, you reduce the borrowing from 1.6 billion naira, then we will be afloat of the whole thing. I have actually looked at this account, that those are the areas that you want to work and ensure that the second half will be promising. I agree with the shareholder who asked for bonus, because I have gone through this and I've seen that the bonus trend is like there's a policy around it that must be fulfilled within that period. And the money for bonus is also helping to increase the shareholders' capital base, and probably a little bit decrease the retained earning of the company. It all depends on the way you are working on it. You have good people working with you, both as non-executive directors, that will support your good ideas. And like you had, humility is key, very important. This question of coming to greet people, your shareholders, also help you to understand your shareholders. It helps. You had a comment of Mr. Boniface Okeze about the attitude and antecedent of Mahmoud. That has helped him. I do not know about this policy of corporate governance, but once it is embedded in the regulations of the company, there's nothing anybody can do about it. But there should be a cool-off period whereby, but I'm quite sure with the enormous shareholding of Mahmoud and his group, he's definitely not going to back this company. It will be in his interest that the company runs and runs well, so that he too will go home with dividend. At the end of the day, if a dividend is declared, his group will earn the biggest chunk of the whole thing. Mr. Chairman, going back to page 25, under the 25, which has to do with unclaimed dividend, the whole money is with the company. What is with the registrars is about 64 million naira. So it is always very important for, like I have always been saying it, and I don't mind whoever disagrees with it, that the point of contact for shareholders is the registrar. And whatever belongs to registrar, once you declare such dividend, it does not belong to you again. And it should remain with the registrars, and we monitor the registrars to do the correct thing from time to time. You have already taken from this page 25, you have already taken 179 million naira. When such money is with the company, according to the rules, is actually not a regulation. According to the rules, there must be another line to tell us what you made out of that money. Because if you are using it, it means that it means that you are enjoying unapplied overdraft. That is exactly what it means. And we must be very careful on those things. Mr. Chairman, let me come back to your statement on the way you eulogized Nnamdi. You see, I have just a summary here. I said I enjoy having shares in company that does not recognize discrimination. That's what I wrote out here. Any company that discriminates will not live long. That is very clear. Now, I have checked here to know whether he's linked to any of the major shareholders. That I have not seen. So what I'm seeing in Eterna is that it's a company that does not discriminate. With that, Eterna will go places. What is more important is the image of the company. Not whether you are from the north, whether from your east, or whether you are a Muslim or a Christian. Like you once said, God created all of us, the same God created all of us. So there's no need for discrimination of any. So, Mr. Chairman, I have talked about finance costs, which affected the profitability of this company. And that finance cost, by my own understanding, came because of prospecting and other things. And because, again, that 1.18 billion did not come into this account. And that's where we are having the problem. When we look at revenue, we have talked about that. Mr. Chairman, I want to further congratulate Mahmoud that one major problem which he did not hand over to Nnamdi, is a court case that has been finished and we've been cleared of everything. So I'd like to congratulate fellow shareholders. Please, let's put our hands together for that. That is part of some of the actions to look at somebody's commitment to a company. In the last 4 years, he's been talking about this thing. We've been talking and talking. Eventually, when it is time for him to go, God just blessed him with the clearance of that case. So, Nnamdi, you do not have any case hanging on you with the regulators, even though you all work towards clearing it. But at the end of the day, somebody's name is more at stake than some other people. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to be like Boniface. Okay, sir.
Which means you are going to finish now.
Yes, yes, yes. I have actually added the 144 to the half-year result. That was why I said 200 million naira. Yes, revenue is very important. If you look at the revenue we made, it's not far from what we made last year. It's not really far from it. But there are certain things that eat up those things to leave us with what we are left with. So in summary, I don't want to start repeating others. In summary, this is a good company with a good board. The company secretary did all her best to ensure that this is put together for today. So I believe we do not have operational problems in this company. What we just need to do is to ensure that coronavirus issues did not creep into our stream of blood so that we can think wisely and do much we can do. The buying power is with the people, which is reduced. But I think with time, all these things will be easy now. Mr. Chairman, I think if I have any other thing so that we can move,
thank you.
I will be able to contact even Mahmoud when he's not on seat. He will answer me when I call him, except that he escaped from me in London. And yes.
In London.
So, Mr. Chairman, God bless the company.
Thank you.
And you, my condolence on the demise of your very close friend.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you, everybody. God bless all of us.
My senior. Thank you very much, shareholders, and for the very, very, may I say, objective, but above all, very helpful comments. As I always say, with auditors and shareholders, we take their comments very seriously. We know both are working towards the betterment of the company. So we take this home and see that we make sure that where we've made errors, we work hard to rectify them. Where suggestions of improvement have been made, we work very hard to make sure that we secure those improvements. I assure you that this is the sense in which we are going to see most of the comments you have made. Having said that, there are a few responses that will be made by myself and by the MD. And if MD so chooses, you can also have lieutenants left, right, and center. And in fact, if the chairman can be given instruction, I'll ask them to make some. Eventually, you are not a good leader. But what he has built internally, and in terms of the position of the company in the market, assures that Nnamdi has to work extraordinarily hard to destroy this company. If you have to, I mean, whoever has to, what I'm saying is the foundation that has been laid is so strong that really one has to, it's harder to destroy it than to actually grow it. It's far easier to grow it than to do. So I think this is for me the greatest legacy that I can say. Mahmoud has built a company that will outlive perhaps all of us, and because of the work that has been done in the last 10 years. And I say again, I join others to wish Mahmoud the best in his endeavors. And And to add that, the board was the choice of Namdi, somebody who at least has worked inside the company for nearly 2 years now at the highest level. He understands all the work that has been done. We believe that he's going to sustain all the good works. The only thing we expect from him is a human organization. Events are changing every day. He should bring his own experience, his own knowledge, and his own intellect to improve what has been made, what has been there, and to face the challenges that are thrown up differently by the market every day. I believe he's prepared for those by the work he has done in the company, by the work he has done outside the company, and above all, by his education and experience in this business. I want to assure shareholders that your company is in very good and safe hands. On the issue of lubricants and products, I'm going to leave that to Mahmoud. Both Mr. Okeze and Sir Soni Musa have commented on, have seen the legal and professional fees. And these were fees we expended, like Soni Musa said, in prospecting. I think maybe the point he made about if you are actually prospecting for oil, you are going to spend billions naira. If oil comes out of the wall, that billions of naira fell into insignificance. What we are prospecting was something that we are trying to create value for the company, mergers and acquisitions. If they work out well, it was just the growth that this company will experience would have been so many-fold. So, but above all, we've gone through a process that for everybody in the company, staff, management, and board, a great learning experience of what is going to happen in this, about what is going to happen in this economy in the next few years. What we have done actually has made sure that we are prepared to face the challenges of the future. You have also made comment about rent, but I can answer that for you. We're expanding our filling stations. We're expanding our retail network. Some of it are rented assets. Some of it are developed assets. This is actually what accounted for that massive increase. But I'm sure the MD will make some reference to that as we go along. Mr. Nano, I will leave MD to talk to you about the interest, cost, and other incomes. My comment is actually going to be on two areas that you've mentioned. First, on the board restructuring. As you rightly pointed out, the newcomer has mandated that PLCs, public companies, must have at the very minimum, and it's a minimum. Okay? It says you must have at the very minimum 3 independent directors. What it also means is that the law does not frown on having all your directors as independent. So during the course of the year and perhaps the coming year, the board is going to engage itself in a restructuring of the board to make sure that first, the provisions of the law are respected, and secondly, we create the diversity in terms of shareholder interest that is represented on the board of directors, as well as the professional competencies that need to be brought on the board of directors. We will spend some time in a very, very structured and deliberate way to make sure that the law is complied with and the board is made to be really a significant reflection of who we are as a Eterna company. So also I said, and I'm proud to say that I've been in this board just barely 3.5 months, but I'm proud to say that this is a board that does not discriminate. The only discrimination we do is incompetence. But if people are competent at the board level, at management, this company appreciates and recognizes and promotes people on that level. The other comment I want to make is on the director's fees in terms of the proxy firm. I think I've checked, at least the proxy form that we've sent have complied with all known rules and regulations in terms of disclosures. So I think, but your point also has been taken. Juhai too, MD, I'm sure will give you some feedback on what is happening and where we stand on that. There has been issue of bonus that has been raised, and I assure you the board will have discussions around that to see what is in the best interest of the company and its shareholders also, because somehow shareholder value also, and also the discussions around unclaimed dividends. My understanding is that there are SEC regulations in terms of management of unclaimed dividends. And I've been assured that the company is complying 100% with this SEC regulation, and SEC is actually monitoring that compliance on a regular basis. So I want to assure the shareholders that there is no risk that the company is acting outside the ambit of the law or is not being monitored for what it's doing. I'm assured that we have a SEC regulation and we are complying with that regulation, and SEC is regularly monitoring what the company is doing about regulation. I also assume if they are doing it with the company, SEC is also monitoring what the registrars are doing with unclaimed dividends. So on that note, I personally want to really again thank the shareholders that have made contributions, and assure you that everything you have said here we value tremendously. And I'll ask Mahmoud to comment.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished shareholders, good afternoon. May I have your permission to address you sitting down? If I may.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sir Sonia, I will start on that note. Indeed, I'm a young man, but I'm 10 years older than when I first joined. So I think a decade on the hot seat has added more than 10 years of my life, and a few more gray hairs than I certainly had when I started. May I first of all...
Gray hair, okay, you have that on the
yes, I had to comply this morning, so I covered the gray hair this morning. It was, thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, board members, distinguished shareholders, both here present and those who are coming in globally, as well as our directors who are also on the Zoom call. Good afternoon, thank you. It's a pleasure to address you. For me, in a nostalgic manner, for the last time as the CEO of this company, it's been the honor of my life to be the CEO for the last 10 years. Indeed, as the chairman said, I was thrust into a job without knowing, probably not prepared for it, but God had his reason, and every journey has a beginning and has an end. I'm glad, delighted to be handing over to an internal successor. I wish him the very best. I know he's capable, and he will do an even better job than I did. That is my prayer for him, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Amen. I'd like to thank the shareholders for their kind words. I've enjoyed an excellent relationship with the shareholders for the last 10 years, or representatives. We've had good times, we've had great times. I don't think we've ever had any bad times. Any issues that needed resolution have been resolved amicably. And I've learned a lot from our shareholders, because they interact with many companies. They see many things, and a lot of the feedback that I've received has been positive. I've been able to implement that internally with my team. So I'm most grateful to all of you for your words of wisdom. You talked about the EFCC case. I know the number of you over the years, right from when it has started, were calling me, the prayers that I received. Some even came to court to actually support us. So it's been a tremendous support from the shareholders. We couldn't have done it alone, and I'm most grateful to Almighty Allah for seeing us through this trial. Indeed, the court case was closed out in February of this year, the company and the whole management were exonerated, and we're glad to put this behind us. Despite that distraction, we're able to keep the company going. So I think it's, again, testament of character to the entire team. We rally around and the board for their support. And it only makes a company stronger. We learn from such experiences, and it strengthens us as individuals and also increases our own faith. So thank you for your support. Thank you to our shareholders. Thank you to our auditors, the audit committee. I've had the privilege of serving on the board for 16 years. I joined at the ripe old age of 31 as a non-executive director, served in various committees, the governance committee, the audit committee, so that again gave me a platform and a foundation and an understanding of the company's operations prior to taking over. So relating those are very important committees that teach you many things. And I've also applied such lessons in other boards that I am privileged to serve on. So the Eterna journey has been a tremendous one, and I'm most grateful for it, and it's something I cherish for the rest of my life. Now, turning to some of the quick questions, with your permission, I will share the load between myself and the CFO so that I don't bore you. Some of the things that are very important, dividends. I'd like to assure shareholders, as the chairman has said, we are definitely complying with the regulations. And actually, what you have seen is a deliberate effort to chase unclaimed dividends. So it started off at 254 odd million, and today, for 43 million, it is down to just 54 million. So there's been a deliberate chase. I know the number of conversations personally I've had with the registrars and the number of major shareholders whom we have chased to actually collect it. So I think we've done a reasonable job. 54 million that is left unclaimed. 54 million that's left unclaimed, I believe is a small figure compared to what has been paid out. But nonetheless, our target should be zero, and I'm sure it's something that Namdi will work on in the future, and maybe dedicate some staff to work with the registrars to ensure that the process of getting shareholders properly cleared with the registrars and then have that well-earned dividends paid should be done. It's the money has left the company, it's with the registrars, and it's now for us to work with the registrars to ensure that it gets to the ultimate beneficiary, which is the shareholders. In terms of our expansion, I'm really glad that we set out a 5-year plan 3 years ago. We're very deliberate about the fact that we needed to expand 2 key areas. Yes, you can take some highlights. When I put the numbers together, Sonny, you'll be shocked that in 10 years, we've done #1 trillion in turnover. We have paid 12 billion naira in debt. Shareholders' funds have increased by 8 billion. Net assets per share has gone from 3 naira to 10 naira. All of this without a single kobo investment by shareholders. So the wealth of the company has been reinvested over the years. The key problems that the company has faced have been resolved. You are very much aware of Dewu. You don't see Dewu in our books. It's a major milestone. You attend AGMs of many listed companies, and you know that they're still grappling with the Dewu effect. But Eterna, as you remember, sir, was the first company to have actually paid back the Dewu bonds and the only company to have successfully canceled the options. So this is a major feat. So from a shareholder perspective, the potential dilution has been resolved. That albatross is over the company's head, also off from the company's neck, and that means that we're in a position to now look at how to increase our share capital, bring in new shareholders, have some sort of equity injection, because the business requires that. So I'm sure management will be coming with the board's approval to shareholders, asking for a new capital raise. It's important. We battled 10 years, as I said, without any injection, and we understood that. But then the cost of that was having to ensure that we actually took care of those issues which represented existential threats to the organization. They're behind us now, and therefore shareholders can hopefully look forward to better times ahead. The strategy was very clear in terms of expanding the lubricant business and expanding the retail business. In 2010, when I took over, we had 11 stations. I think only now we have over 60 operating outlets, and we're growing. Our target is to try and hit 100 by year end or by Q1 next year, and we're fast tracking that. So those are the businesses that will last the company in the long term. In the short term, we've benefited from trading, but as we have seen, as you've seen the impact on our numbers, FX is a major problem, and the role of NNPC in the market is a major problem. We cannot compete with NNPC. We cannot compete with the access to FX. We cannot compete with their scale. So therefore, we need to find more efficient ways of doing business, which is what we're trying to do. So long term, I think the plan is clear, and management has begun to deploy that plan and actually to deliver on that plan. And I'm sure Namdi and the team who he's going to work with, by the time they're through with delivering on that plan, you will see that we are going to record huge successes. We're also battling to ensure that the level playing field is established. As you're aware, we have to finance our operations. We have to borrow money from banks, we have to buy products, bring them into tank before we get paid, compared with our neighbors who are compared with the majors who are able to receive product on credit. So these are the dynamics that distinguishes our operations and our risk from our majors who are brothers and fellow competitors, operators in the industry. Zhuhai 2 represents an exciting opportunity. We have capital locked in there right now, but that represents the single largest aviation tank farm in Lagos. And it's positioned in Murtala Mohammed International Airport. Yes, it hasn't begun to operate, but it will operate by next year. It's 99% complete. We're looking how to structure the working capital to ensure that we can actually commission the facility. And we are in advanced discussions with an international operator to partner with them in terms of sale of aviation jet fuel. Obviously, the last 9 months, COVID-19 has had an impact, so we're working towards trying to finalize the plans with a view to take off next year. But Zhuhai 2 should bring significant value to this company in the years to come. And Eterna has actually played a leading role. So I've chaired the board of Zhuhai 2 for the last 4 years. Again, in recognition, there are 10 investors, but they came behind to actually nominate Eterna and myself to chair that board in recognition of our leadership, in recognition of the governance that we bring to the organization, and other business skills. So we are leading the forefront, and we can assure shareholders that you will see returns from Zhuhai to it. Namdi and I have spent the last few months in the transition program and a number of Zoom calls with potential investors, and I think that progress has been made. I think those are the questions that I would answer for the moment. With your permission, I would hand over the mic to the CFO, who will tackle the numbers on the financials, and if there's anything else to add, I will do that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, other directors who are not present here and the ones present and distinguished shareholders. I think Mike and the MD have addressed most of the issues that I raised, but I'll just address a couple of to do with revenue and some of the expenses. Regarding revenue, you observed that there was a bit of decline in the revenue, but that was actually deliberate. If you've attended a couple of other AGMs, you'd recognize that in the last few months, there was a new finance bill that was signed into law in January, and that required that we pay the minimum tax, which is a 0.5% of our revenue. So whatever profit you declare, if the 32% or 30% of it is lower than the minimum tax, you will have to pay that minimum tax. And that is why on PBT, we had to pay even more tax, and it threw us into a negative, which is the profit of the tax. My MD and other members of DAPMA are taking that up with the with the Ministry of Finance, because it is one that is really impacting us negatively. And in response to that, you're going to see further reduction in our revenue, because what that means is that we're going to be more conscious of the revenue we declare, because the more revenue you declare, the more. So we're going to be looking at other means of how we're going to be doing business going forward, but that is really a major factor that affected us. So we're looking at how to rearrange our accounting in order to meet the IFRS requirements and also the new regulation of tax. And that is a major challenge we have. Regarding the license fee, as it suggests, it's really a regulatory fee. And they're constantly on a revenue drive, as you're also aware. So there's constant increase in all the revenue fees that they keep demanding. Year on year, we keep having increase. And if you don't pay, then even this year, it took us almost 6 months before we got our depot license, and it affected some of the business we wanted to do. So even though you paid since December, you don't get the license on time. And that is part of the challenges of the environment that we face. We thank you for observing the fact that our auditors have not increased their fees lately, and we really appreciate that, and we hope that with them and the audit committee, they'll be able to keep that stable going forward, given the fact that we are really in a difficult time, and it is really not the time to keep increasing fees. On the legal fees, as you had rightly noted, the chairman also put in his speech, we had chased some potential transactions last year, and they fell through, and that is why we have the fees. This year we are still on the expansion, and with every expansion it comes with its own fees. You have to explore the new business, you have to look at the contract that you're putting in to ensure that you are covered and all of that. So there are other fees that you also get to pay over the years. There's a tax consulting and other professionals that support the business, and that is what you see. But as a business and from the management perspective, we're constantly looking at our expenses, we're constantly looking at means to reduce cost. Even with the COVID, for instance, we practically shut down one of our offices so that we can consolidate in only one office and reduce cost. So as management, that is what we constantly look at, that various aspects of expenses, we try to minimize to the barest minimum. And if you look across all the expense line, you see that aside from the ones that have to do with increasing our footprint, which is the only way we're going to be able to keep retain or remain in business, we are reducing all those other expenses that are variable and within our control. And so that is what I'll just summarize regarding the expenses. As for the dividend, we actually are not making any returns on our dividend. We are not using the dividend, which is why we are not making any disclosure regarding that. We don't have any income in our financials regarding the dividend. Once it is declared, we move to the registrars, and it is being managed wholesomely by the registrars with their asset management department. So we are not recognizing any aspect of the unclaimed dividend in our financial statements. I believe that I've attended to most of the issues that I raised. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, yes, please. Mr. Akizi.
Yeah, Chairman, I think there's another day that said that Eda does not stay in the house, and they go tired on the road, begin to be starved for death. We're already freezing here. Most 10 giant ACs are working. I think because of this COVID something, I've been advised that AC should not be all that constantly be on the AC. We have to reduce.
1, Mrs. Afola Kelawal. 2, Chief Dr. Michael Adiojo.
Now that you have known the directors to be re-elected and they have been introduced, let us proceed to re-elect them accordingly. To save time, I would suggest that the resolution, that the directors be elected by a single resolution for this to be possible, would require, for this to be possible, to save time, I would suggest that the directors be elected by a single resolution. There is a vote. Okay, so we'll take them one by one. So would someone move that, will someone, yeah, that the directors propose, sorry. Yeah. I move that Chief Adeojo be re-elected and be and hereby re-elected as director of the company. May I vote? Yes, please.
Chairman, I write to second that motion. My name is Okezia Boniface.
Thank you very much. Can the registrars give us the votes? Registrars, you go introduce, yeah, you give us the instructions. I was looking that side earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before we commence the voting, I'd like to read through the instructions just to guide us on how to use the devices. An electronic device was issued to you earlier. The device has been activated and is ready for use. A resolution will be announced and voting for the resolution will commence after the announcement. On the voting pad, 1 represents yes, 2 represents no, and 3 represents abstain. Voting for a resolution commences and ends in 30 seconds. So we have 30 seconds within which we can cast our votes. Voting results will be displayed immediately after each voting session. Unit holding indicated on the results slide is in both shareholding percentage and unit holding. Okay. We shall now proceed with voting for the resolution. And once I announce that we can start, the counting will start on the board, and then when it ends, we'll also see that. Voting starts now. Please vote.
Issue is responded.
Once, yes. Click the button once.
Okay. Or it will not show until you finish.
Sorry?
It will not show until we finish.
Yes.
Okay.
It will show the result. Okay. So voting has ended. So we have 99.95% of the votes cast in favor of the resolution and 0.05% abstaining. In shareholding, this is represented by 716,865,000 shares in favor and 378,000 shares abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Registrars. I now go to the next candidate. I move that Mrs. Afolake Lawal be re-elected as director of the company. May I have somebody seconding the motion? Thank you. Thank you very much. So, vote has been seconded, so we now move to the vote registrar.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. For the resolution to elect Mrs. Afolake Lawal, voting starts now. Please vote. Resolution 0